giving you a little bit idea of what I do with the Federal Crop Insurance Program, the Risk Management Agency. The first slide you'll see is just a picture of how our field office is structured with the Risk Management Agency. I am one of 10 regional offices. Circled in red are the states that I work with. I work with Kansas, Colorado, Nebraska, and Missouri. All 10 offices do about the same thing. And just to give you a brief overview of what the 10 regional offices do is we work with the crop insurance program, and we'll have a national policy. We have national policies, like for instance, we'll have a national wheat policy. What our job is to take that national policy and make it fit for the cropping practices and the way it's grown in an individual county. So our job is to make sure the crop insurance program fits at the county level. Also, one of the things we do is make sure that the program is delivered as intended. Unlike Jim, who with NIFA had mentioned that they are not regulatory, we are regulatory. So one of the things that we will do is if a claim exceeds $500,000, the insurance company will notify our office, and we have the opportunity to go out and work that claim with the insurance company. That way we know that the policies and procedures that are drafted by the Risk Management Agency are carried out in accordance with how they were intended. We have 17 different companies that deliver the program. All of the programs are supposed to be delivered the same way. The same policies and procedures apply to every company. So companies compete on the basis of service. Another thing we do is assess risk. There's certain areas in a county that may have a higher loss severity or frequency, and one thing our office will do is we'll identify these areas, and typically we see a little bit more of this in the eastern part of my region, eastern Kansas, eastern Nebraska, and Missouri, where land along some rivers or tributaries may flood a little bit more frequently than the rest of the county. So we'll delineate these areas and assess an appropriate rate that would be actuarially sound as mandated by our statute, so that the rest of the producers are not affected by those that farm in these what we consider higher risk areas. And one of the most important things we do is handle exceptions. Anytime you have a national crop insurance policy or policies that's written on a county-wide basis, there's always going to be exceptions. If you're growing a crop or carrying out a practice or a type that's not generally insurable in the county, you can request an individual offer from our office, and that's something called a written agreement. A generic term is exceptions. Limited irrigation is one of those exceptions. We have generally two practices in a county for a crop. It's irrigated and non-irrigated. In order to cover your crop as irrigated, you have to have enough water at the appropriate times throughout the growing season to irrigate to produce the yield upon which your guarantee is based, also known as your actual production history yield. If you have reason to know that your water is going to be reduced during the growing season, we say that there is no reasonable expectation. So our current options, if you don't have enough water to carry out an irrigated practice, your other options are to go to non-irrigated. You can spread out your water, but you have to report it as non-irrigated. Your other option is to cut back on your irrigated acres. So reduce the number of acres you irrigate, report the rest as non-irrigated. And what we've been doing in this area of Kansas, where you see the counties in green, we're also offering a third option. You still have the other two options of cutting back on your water or reporting it all as non-irrigated. But a third option is to request an exception from our office for a limited irrigation yield. And what we have done is we've taken some yield estimation models in order to make an offer for limited irrigation. We've only, we've only identified these counties in green. We had certain criteria that we needed in order to make this option available. One is that we needed to have at least 2,000 acres. Like I mentioned, we have to have an actuarially sound program, which our minimum number of acres is 2,000 to be considered credible. So these are counties that have at least 2,000 irrigated acres. They also have to have 30% of your acres need to be irrigated. So it has to have a predominance or a lot of irrigated acres for us to be able to offer this program. And then the third thing is we have to have a large difference between your irrigated yields and your non-irrigated yields. In this case, what we've done is we've identified the counties that have at least a non-irrigated yield that is lower than 60% of our irrigated yield. And that just goes along with the basis that if you have a yield plug, we're going to allow you to have yield plugs on your irrigated. And my last slide here is just a little bit, a brief comparison of limited irrigation compared to irrigated and non-irrigated coverage. And this example is an actual example in Sheridan County, Kansas. Our average yield for irrigated corn is 187. Our average yield for non-irrigated corn is 55. And in this example, someone is going from about 15 inches of irrigation water to 11 inches. So they're taking a 4-inch reduction, acre-inch reduction, and applying it to their corn. Coverage level is 70%. You got your production guarantee. And your insurance guarantee, as you can see on the irrigated corn, if you continue to fully irrigate it, would be $518. If you go with the non-irrigated, you're only going to get about $152 per acre. Whereas you get a limited irrigation corn, our estimate is that you would be right about 161 bushel average yield, 113 bushel guarantee, $446 in production guarantee. And then you take that down to the irrigate or to the rates, because we have very different rates for irrigated and non-irrigated in the western part of the state. So when we offer a limited irrigated corn coverage, we're actually going to allow the person to still have an irrigated rate as opposed to having to go to the non-irrigated. So you can see it makes a lot of difference as far as what your premium rate would be if you went with the limited irrigation corn as opposed to reporting it all as non-irrigated corn. In closing, the one thing I would like to say is the only reason we've been able to do this is that we've had a really good working relationship with the state of Kansas. They have really pushed for this and made data available to us. So one of the key things that we needed in order to offer some sort of program like this was to be able to have data for the water use data. We need good historic water use data. We have the yield data, and beyond that, it's just a matter of using the models to come up with a yield estimate. The models have been peer reviewed, tested, and we're very comfortable with them. Thank you. Next up is Syed.
Thank you, Susan. Well, I thought I was the last, but I'm not. I always say that they always leave the best for the last, but it didn't happen today. I'll tell you what, you guys might be wondering, how I was hired by the Rosebud Sioux tribe. So very quickly, before I go into my presentation, they advertised for the position and they wanted somebody with a background in hydrology or geology, engineering, or law, legal. So they called 3 people, an engineer, an attorney, and myself, a hydrologist. And they asked a simple question. They first asked the engineer, hey, how much 2 plus 2 stands for? So the engineer took out his calculator and said, exactly 2 plus exactly 2 is exactly 4. So I said, okay, all right. Next was the lawyer. He was asked to know how much 2 plus 2, and he said, how much do you want that to be, 5 or 3? He said, I can do it. I'm very smart. So finally, they called the hydrologist, they called me, I came, how much 2 plus 2 stands? I looked around, I was scratching my head, I looked up, and then I said, I need more information. And they gave me the job. I'll tell you what, policy, being on the policy panel, I don't know. It's one of the most difficult tasks on Rosebud Reservation because it is, some of the lands are owned by the state of South Dakota and much of the land is owned by Rosebud Sioux tribe. To have some kind of policy, it's a tough job. So let me just go ahead and show some of the slides to show exactly why I'm saying that policy is a difficult thing on Rosebud Reservation. First of all, my colleague, John Whiting, he made sure that this is a little blurred because he said, it's blurry. The policy thing on Rosebud Reservation is so blurry, so let me make it a little blurred for you. I said, okay, all right, that makes sense. He's a pretty nice guy, a very interesting guy. But the Ogallala Aquifer occurs from Texas to South Dakota, and the northern tip of the aquifer occurs on, if I had, thought I had something to show the, yeah, I believe so, yes. This is the Rosebud Reservation, but you see, all of the reservation is not underlaid by the Ogallala Aquifer or the High Plains Aquifer. So in the northern part, we didn't have a good quality water, okay? So, and many of the communities there had to haul water in trucks, believe me. This is the United States of America, but there, some of the communities didn't have running water. We had to provide water by hauling water from the south to the north. Okay, and then this is the exterior boundary of the reservation now. It used to be 5 counties before 1976. In 1976, due to some legal issues, the reservation was reduced to this, but the tribe still has tribal lands in these counties as well. And the aquifer just occurs on the southern part of the reservation, but not in the northern part of the reservation. So see this fee land, this is owned by the state of South Dakota. Allotted land owned by tribal members, and tribal land, of course, is Rosebud Sioux tribal land. These are the lifeblood of the Ogallala Aquifer. We've got 28 monitor wells that we have drilled on the Ogallala Aquifer on Rosebud Reservation. Each of this is a location of a monitoring well. And these monitoring wells is what really allows us to understand the water quality and quantity. From these monitoring wells, we know the saturated thickness, which way the groundwater is flowing, all the goodies. If I wanted to make a presentation, I would love to make a presentation on the hydrogeology, but because this is a policy panel, I'm going to skip that. These are the locations of the center pivot irrigation systems on the reservation. There are over 90 center pivot irrigation systems, and each of this is pumping more than 300, 400 gallons per minute. So you can well imagine, on an annual basis, we have done some calculations, over 16 billion gallons of water are pumped by these center pivot irrigation systems. And most of them are in the center part of the aquifer on Rosebud Reservation, because this is where the saturated thickness of the aquifer is the highest. Okay, remember I said about the monitoring well? This is what really gives me the best idea of what is happening to the aquifer on Rosebud Reservation. We generated hydrograph right from 1984 to 2016. I've got it over there up to 2016. But here it's showing up to 2008. But as you can see, the water level, even if it falls, it does bounce back. That's the thing that we always look for, is the recharge versus discharge. On an average basis, in a few places where the center pivot irrigation systems are there, the water level has fallen about 3 to 4, maximum 5 feet. So these are again those monitoring wells, and we generate hydrographs, and you can see that in this well the water level is on the fall. So we did keep an eye on this well more than this well or this well too. We did find out that after 2008, it did come back. The recharge was high enough to bring the water level back up. Okay, and this is my last slide. We have developed a resource. Remember, I don't know why this is blurred, but you know. Well, you know, these communities have been hooked up to the Rosebud Rural Water System. This is the water system part of the Mini-Wichoni Rural Water System. Mini-Wichoni is a Dakota term meaning water is life. It was built with funding from the Department of Interior, Bureau of Reclamation. About $470 million have been spent to cover about 1/6 of South Dakota. That includes 3 reservations, including Rosebud. On this side there's the Ogallala Reservation, and in this area there is Lower Blue Reservation. And rest of it is non-tribal counties. So this system is based on surface water from the Missouri. We serve these communities with surface water from the Missouri, and these communities with groundwater from the Ogallala Aquifer. So as you can see, you know, we assess, we monitor, we evaluate, and then we develop the resource. Thank you.
Thank you, Syed. Next we'll have Rod share the Colorado perspective.
Thank you, Susan. I consider it an honor to be here today to present something to the degree of water policy from Colorado. I don't pretend to be an expert across the whole basin, but I do feel like I know a lot about the Republican River and the compact that we call the Republican River Compact. So I'm going to speak to that, but I'm going to give a little bit of background first in that from the Colorado standpoint, if we go back to the early 1900s, there's a pioneer called, who was named Delphius Carpenter. And Delphius had this attitude that, you know what, the water in Colorado is Colorado's water, and we'll be glad to send you any water that we don't use. And so that didn't fly with the Supreme Court, and they said, you better go back and rethink. That's what they did, and the compact system came forward. And Delphius was very instrumental in developing several of 9 compacts and 7 rivers, and the Republican River that I'm part of is one of those compacts. And the compact was established in 1942, and we talk about water policy. Policy is largely driven by that compact. So as that compact makes demands from us, I think we have to respond to that. And so I want to fast forward it to maybe where we are and how we have to address some of the different demands. In eastern Colorado, the Northern High Plains, we have a bunch of agencies, a bunch of boards that have to cooperate together. If you look to the right side of this and you see the multiple colors, those are our groundwater management districts, and there's 7 of them, actually 8 if you go down to the bottom end of it. And those are small boards, between 500 and 1,000 wells per board as far as volume of wells. There's about 540,000 total acres of irrigated ground there. And the boards are empowered to regulate and restrict. That's their statutory authority. And so that's what they do, but the problem is they really don't have any money. So they're out there thinking they like to make rules, but they're afraid to make rules. So as we went forward, and the Ogallala being what it is, and we all know that we're sucking it dry, basically, we were unable to fulfill our compact obligations. And so the state of Colorado says we need somebody to help us out. It needs to be locally grown, you know, locally controlled, so let's get us an organization. And they statutorily organized the RWCD, Republican River Water Conservation District. And the sole purpose of that, or maybe I should say the primary purpose of that organization, is to aid the state in compact compliance. So in 2002 and forward, we're trying to make up for past sins. And I would say in the last 10 years or so, we've done a really marvelous job of trying to play catch up. And I would say that while you could say we are really close to compliance or we're not in compliance, we're right there where we've got our arms around it. And we've built a pipeline, a $60 million pipeline. We've drained Bonnie, which is one of the most controversial things you could have ever done. And but we are right there on the cusp of fulfilling our obligations. But looking forward, we're looking at, what about conservation? We're finally getting to the real subject that we need to be looking at, and that is conservation. And so we decided, okay, how do we look at this? And so we formed yet another organization called the Water Preservation Partnership. And that partnership has representatives not only from the RWCD and the Groundwater Management districts, but also a few other, let's call them watchdog organizations throughout the basin. And we tasked them to say, okay, what should conservation look like? What can it look like? And so the Water Preservation Partner teamed up with Colorado State and the state, and they said, let's do an economic study, find out economically what can we stand. You know, what can we stand both in water reduction and what does it do to our communities? So they took on, it was over a 1-year study, and it was rather alarming because their recommendation coming out of that study says, I think the growers believe that we can see a 25% reduction in your pumping and still be economically viable. Now, if you're out there happily pumping for years and years and somebody says you need to reduce 25% over the next 10 years, a lot of people became very alarmed, but that's good because that so-called crisis created a conversation, and that conversation motivated people to say, we got to think differently. So I guess looking at this slide, I want to summarize this slide in that the problem we have with policy is we've got 7 groundwater management districts that have authority and no money. We have our WCD who has fee charging ability, but really no authority. And we have the Water Preservation Partnership, which has neither authority nor money. So what we really need is a traffic cop to try to direct all the energies and to focus them in a way that coordinates policy, that we can all move forward into preserving the aquifer. So what I wanted to do, talking about the last couple days, while I'm speaking to the Republican River, the story's the same. It doesn't really matter where we're at in this aquifer. The hydrology's different, the laws are different, maybe the soil types are different, but the desires are the same. And the challenges as far as policy, I think, are very much the same. And we talk about keeping decisions local, number one there. Well, that's a great idea if the people that are in charge at that local level care to take action. So we've got to empower them, educate them, and get them to do something. If they don't, it will go up the pyramid, and we will see either counties, states, regions, federal, Supreme Courts step in and take control. Don't want that. So what we need to do is motivate, at least in our area, our goal is to motivate our groundwater management districts to exercise their authority. So we held a educational forum in January, called all our groundwater management districts together, and we've done this sort of thing before, but this one was incredibly focused, trying to let those members know that you're on this board for a reason, and you have authority, you have security. They're all worried about litigation, but if you do your job correctly, that's really not much of a threat. And so we're just trying we're here to help as a Republican River. We're here to help you guys. What do you need from us? So this thing about keeping decisions local is a challenge, but we can't just sit there and wait for the people at the local level to take the horse by the reins, if you will. And that takes constant education. Every time you go out in the public, you're educating. And you can't judge people from what you think they know. You just gotta take everything in stride, and from my experience, and find out where they're at and take them to the next level. Take them to the very next part of education. So no matter what meeting you're at, there's always water education. Because, the people in this room are incredibly intelligent. They're passionate. I've seen that the last 2 days. But we have to go get more recruits to be able to accomplish the goal of extending the aquifer. The next thing I have down on number 3 is look at the big picture. Don't get discouraged. I'll go to a meeting, I'll come and say, what a waste of time. And I'll sit there and say, what could we do differently? Then I go, wait a minute, where were we last year in this whole project? And where are we now? And that always makes me feel better, because I think we are moving, maybe not at the speed I would like to move, but we are moving as far as getting people to think about conservation, getting people to act about conservation, working with the other districts, the other states. The other thing is, number 4, stay flexible. You sit there and you can have your own roadmap, and say we're going to do A, then B, then C, then D, well, sometimes the opportunities don't present themselves in that order. Sometimes you got to go from A to D to C to B, because that door opens up. We've got a chance to buy a property over here and retire the water because that property's for sale. I can't go do eminent domain and take the property and sell it because it's number 2 on my list. So you look at the opportunities and try to push that concept forward, that goal forward, that train on the track forward as best you can, but you look for the opportunities and work with them. The next thing is balance technology and restrictions. So often, in our area, people want technology to be the driver, and the only driver. They want it all to be economically sound with a return on investment. Doesn't always work that way. Sometimes your technology leaders will adopt, and they'll be ahead of everybody else. But some of those trailers, they need some restrictions, they need some regulations, they need somebody to encourage them to get on the train. And so it takes a balance of technology, innovation. We know there's a lot of things out there. We've heard that just earlier this morning. There's a lot of things out there we can use, but those adopters are the ones who are in this room. Some of the rest of us need somebody to say, you will be adopting. So a balance between technology and restrictions. The next thing is something I think we've learned over the last maybe 5 years. Blame really doesn't forward an agenda. I can blame Texas, Kansas, Nebraska, whoever. It doesn't matter. We are where we are. Delphius Carpenter had a term that he coined that I've used a lot. It's called comedy. And it's not comedy as funny. It's comedy as in shared cooperation, trusted cooperation between parties. And I think I've seen that grow since the time I've been on the Republican River immensely in the Republican River Compact between Kansas, Nebraska, and Colorado. It is like night and day different from what it was when I got on the board. It's because the states are starting to trust each other. And I see, in this room, a comment was made yesterday about we don't have very many lawyers in here, and that's not a slam on lawyers, but isn't it nice to have the candor to be able to say something and not think you're going to have somebody second guessing you? I think that is maybe the greatest change I've seen in the 5 years. Before you wonder on everything, are we okay to do this? Are we okay to say this? And in this summit, that's not been the case. So that goes back to the blame. Don't blame anybody. Yeah, you can in the back of your mind think that wasn't fair, but you're not going to forward our agenda. Our agenda is the same one. It's to extend the aquifer. That's the agenda. And if we stay focused on that, and I don't have to agree with Kansas or Nebraska, that's okay, but let's find the things we do agree on and push that part of the train forward. That doesn't mean we cower in the corner. I'm going to defend the things we do at our level. I might not be always right, but I'm going to give you the best defense possible. And I'm going to stay positive while I'm doing it. Because if I'm positive, it just raises the temperature of the room. We tend to get more done when we're not, once again, doing the blame game. So, wrapping my little policy thing up. I know this isn't so much about policy, but policy's woven through this. It's application of our habits, of what we do towards policy. And I am passionate about water. I'm passionate about agriculture. I just retired this last year, not because I was tired of farming, because the legacy that I want to leave really is centered around water. And so I wanted more time to spend doing this, to motivate, to encourage, to educate the people in our community. And so, if we're going to have a legacy of agriculture, of irrigated agriculture in this basin, it's going to take us going home and recruiting help. We can't do it by ourselves. But the application of policy, how we do it at home, it's going to be different, but we have to do it. So thank you.
Thank you, Rod. And next we'll hear from Steve and hear the Texas perspective.
Good morning. I have one slide, if I can figure out how to advance it. There it is. I tried to put as much on this slide as you possibly could and still see it from the back, so I could do it with just one slide. I am the general manager of the North Plains Groundwater Conservation District. I've been there almost 11 years now. When the board hired me, we're located in the northern part of Texas, northern part of the Panhandle. I call it the North Pole of Texas for my friends in Austin. They have an idea where that is. When they hired me as a regulatory person to implement a metering program, to help them work with their production limits that they had just set. And they had done a really pretty good job, actually, for that. As we had gone through in 2009, the board decided, after looking at our production limits and looking at stuff, under our Texas water law, we're governed by 36. It has a toolbox of lots of different things we can do in it as a district. We'd gone through some management planning. We'd been part of regional water planning for years. Now we were doing groundwater management area planning. And one of our board members, the president of the board, Danny Krinke, who's here today, was the chairman of that committee during the time that we're trying to set desired future conditions in the Panhandle with 3 other districts. As we were going through that, we're looking at that and how we were going to have a desired future condition in 50 years for our aquifer. We started looking at our rules. And under our conservation rules, we looked at the production limit that we had set, annual production limit of 2 acre-feet, and the board at that time decided that we needed to go, after kicking this around a while, reduce our production limits by 25% over a few year period. So in 2009, the board voted to make that reduction over a short period of time. Now, making a reduction in your production limit from local area by farmers to farmers is pretty tough. I can tell you that they faced a lot of heat in doing that. And in the process, we were at a board meeting after passing this, and Harold Graw, who's also here, he's the current president of my board, and Danny Krinke got into a discussion, and the whole board discussed on how are we going to show our friends, the people that are constituents, that we can actually make it on 1.5 acre-feet of water per acre. So out of that, our demonstration programs are born. It actually started as a bet. I think Danny was the one who said, well, I can use 18 inches under pivot and grow 200 bushels of corn. And Harold says, I think I can do it with 12. So we ended up with a 212 program trying to raise 200 bushels of corn on 12 inches of irrigation, which included the soil moisture. Hopefully the soil moisture would be replenished during the winter. We normally get rains, except for this year, during the winter that fills up the soil moisture profile. Also rain during the season, we expect to get around 8 to 10 inches. So our total amount of water we had to work with in a perfect year was 26 inches. No year's perfect. I can tell you that today after going through that program. We went out with this program before we had it fully developed, and we're looking for people to help us pay for it. And we went to the Water Development Board, they said no. Went to the NRCS, USDA NRCS for a SIG grant, and they said no. Absolutely the best thing ever happened to us, because it made us go back and kick this stuff around some more to figure out really what we wanted to do. What came out of that was 3 of our producers that were on our board says, if the district will find someone to keep up with our numbers, keep up with the stuff, we'll do this and demonstrate it on our own farms. Well, Danny and Harold and a guy named Phil Holland stepped up. We also had a person named Brian Besner that was on the board that also participated in it. And we started doing on-farm demonstrations with farmers to farmers. And it carried a lot of credibility. We went out and got a guy named Leon New. Some of you know him if you've been in agricultural irrigation or in engineering for any length of time. If you don't know Leon, you haven't really been around long enough. Leon is, I think, 83, 84 today. He is trying to retire. We hired him on back in 2010 to do our demonstration projects to put it in, and actually belie us. Chew on the numbers to get the numbers on actually what we're saving. And we started. It made sense to us because it was all about, in our state, private property rights. So water under your property is yours, unless it's been. Oh, this is even better. I can start over. Hello? Oh, this is even better. Sorry about that. I won't start over. I'll get into my own speech now. But anyway, we started down this path on, we did a 5-year program that was very successful. In that program, we did show producers the use of soil moisture probes, a lot of the things that have already been talked about here today. And when we ended that program, we started, about the time we ended that program, we took over our demonstration field. We had a research field for years with A&M, but we took it back over and turned it into a demonstration field. It's not a research field, it's not a technology center, it's a demonstration field. It's, if you use this much water or this type of soil, use all the soil health and all the list of things that have been mentioned over the next few days, what's going to be the outcomes? Good or bad, we want to present those outcomes. But the thing that has really taken off, we went through some demonstrations, and about 3 years ago we started looking at a new program called Master Irrigator. We believe that there's a lot of things out there that the district can connect experts, other farmers with farmers, and this Master Irrigator program was the brainchild of Dan Krinke, who's out in the audience now. Was to basically have classroom experience for producers, bring in the experts to show them how to do stuff, maybe do better. We got the NRCS to help us by giving us, not us, but producers who participated, $1.6 million in EQIP eligible funding over 4 years. Water Development Board has helped us. And the board, when we went back and started in 10, has provided a lot of money for us over the years in doing our demonstration programs. In fact, they pay for half of the equipment that goes out on the metering program that we've got. But in the issues that in our Master Irrigator program, we do all the things that, I have to go back to my notes, I've got 9 pages here. Darren Buck, Rourke Paulman, Ronnie Hopper, and R.N. Hopper, all the things they said they were doing, we show. We do that in this program, and we try to get it out to producers, and we started that. Some of the other things, and I may be redundant, is soil health and infiltration and residue management, economics of irrigation scheduling. We believe that it has to pencil out. This idea that conservation cost, you will never sell it to widespread adoption if people are going to spend more money to do the same thing they've been doing over the years. It doesn't help them in their farming. Measuring crop water use, data interpretation and strategic irrigation management, system application efficiency, pivot shutoff, track management, VRI, remote monitoring, crop profitability analyzer, variable frequency drives, remote sensing uses in agriculture. I like this one. How I use satellite imagery and drones in my operation. This was done this year by Bryce Howard, who is the son of Mark Howard, who's also here, who's also on my board. And he's showing, he's a young whippersnapper. He's like, if he's 30, I'd be amazed. But Mark is, Bryce is the guy that can actually show practical application of some of this stuff to help irrigators shut off their pivot when they need to, or go fix something that they haven't been able to see. Subsurface drip irrigation systems, we put in 40 acres of drip to try to solve the problem. Is drip better than LIPA? Our ag engineer, Leon, wonders, and we do too, so we're doing that now. Pros and cons of pre-watering, fertility, tillage practices, planting dates, seeding. All these are covered in our Master Irrigator program, which is a 24-hour program over 4 days. And that, at the end of that, if you complete all that, then you have access to some NRCS money. What we have found is that we've had people who are not eligible for the program because they're not eligible for EQIP, or they've already gotten into the EQIP program. They're taking it because it's helping them farm better. I hesitate to say that the district is doing the presentations. If you look down the list, the presentations are just about from everybody other than district staff. We look for someone, people in the audience. We look for high energy people. Jordan Bell, if she would have had my extra 5 minutes, would have been far better for you than me probably. She's on one of the Master Irrigators. The reason that my board likes her and I like her is occasionally we will see her in the field working one-on-one with producers. That's key. You've got to work one-on-one with producers. That program has been running, this is the 3rd year now. We have 1 more year before we start our next. Cotton has become king in our area for a while. I can tell you that I approached one of the producers that I think a lot of. He's also a board member, and I asked him, what can North Plains do in cotton? And he said, potentially, he didn't say go do this, but he said potentially look at the RACE program that Texas A&M is doing and testing different seeding and watering methods, I guess. I don't even know what RACE stands for, but if you ask Jordan Bell, she can tell you. Hopefully we can do something, work out something on our field to do that. On our field, we also have a demonstration field there that is operated by a farmer that's not on our board. A guy named Stan Spain. He has more bosses than you can imagine. He has more than I do. And he is a good farmer for us. He's been operating, and we operate it as a farm. And we have to be careful on what we put into the farm because we want it to be as close to a farm as it can be for the half section we've got. It's easy to jump off if you're a government guy or gal to start doing a whole bunch of different things and just fill the thing up. And the board has stepped back on several occasions and says, oh, wait a minute, we're getting back to being a research farm, which is different. Research sometimes, as you know, leads to things that never come out. If you want to change the way producers are doing today or in the next 5 to 10 years or how they're implementing these programs, you got to put commercially available stuff out there for them to use. That was in all of our programs, that's been a hallmark. The stuff that we show, the stuff we demonstrate isn't something that's going to be available next year or 5 years or 10 years from now. They have to go to the shelf today and pull it off and try it. And you try to get people with in production to give them the tools and show them how to use them. I think that's a key to this. One of our board members once said our real issue as far as in that part of our conservation education in our groundwater district is taking the stuff out of your filing cabinet, you educate researchers, and put it out there so producers can actually evaluate it and take advantage of it. What I like about this conference is, 5 to 10 years ago, there really wasn't a lot of demonstration going on. I'd show up to some of the programs and we talked about really wonderful research, but when you ask how you get it out in the field, a lot of the researchers didn't really have a clue because we had disconnected from our producers, the guys and gals who are going to make the difference. That's the biggest policy initiative for a guy that comes from the regulatory background, and I have a pretty heavy regulatory background. It is fun, to work with the hoppers occasionally. Ronnie, one of the things I didn't mention, but Ronnie and RN, you touched me because I'm done. That'll teach you. Ronnie and RN won the Texas Blue Legacy Award for their work last year. That's the kind of people we want in our programs. With that, I guess I have to quit since she's about to pull me off the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And last but not least, Ray Luhman with the Groundwater Management District number 4 in Northwest Kansas will share some comments, and then we will make sure we have some time for a question or two. Ray.
Thank you. I don't have any slides, so you can't hold anything against me or prove that I said it. So we've got that covered right off the bat. Again, my name's Ray Luhman. I'm the manager at Groundwater District 4 up in Colby. Our district probably does things a little bit different than a lot of others in the fact that we have instituted one successful LEMA. That's what a lot of people have heard of as the Sheridan 6 LEMA. It actually finished up its first 5-year period in 2017. Their advisory committee recommended to our board that we go through the hearings to reauthorize that. Those hearings have been done, and it will be reinstituted for the period 2018 through 2022. Subsequent to that, we have also been working on what we call a district-wide LEMA. It's not completely district-wide, but it covers a majority of our district, the areas that are showing some declines, varying levels of declines, and there are varying levels of allocations being set for that. One thing I'd like to do is kind of contrast the Sheridan 6 Lima with the district-wide Lima in the way it was formed. The Sheridan 6 Lima was much more producer generated. We had many meetings with the producers in that area. It's a small area, only about 99 sections, less than 200 wells, so it was easy to do that. But between the board of directors and those producers, we came up with the plan that the board then submitted to the Division of Water Resources for institution of that Lima. The district-wide Lima has been more board-oriented. We have had a lot of public meetings, public information meetings, and so forth, but a lot of the provisions of that have been developed by staff and board. So I think that's a big difference. They're both going through the same process, and the district-wide will start in 2018. David assures me we're going to get an order of designation out here about any time, so we'll be getting that done. But from a perspective from the Groundwater District 4, we've talked here for the last couple of days about how regional differences are, what we can do as a group to forward the process of water conservation. In District 4, we tend to ignore the rest of the area. We kind of look inward and say, what can we do here locally under the laws and the statutes that we have. We pay attention to what's going on outside of our district boundaries, but we tend to focus most of our work and time on the district itself. I don't know, my board has a philosophy, they've said it several times, that we've got to do something. We can no longer kick this can down the road. And I think, it's shown a lot of courage from our board of directors to move forward with this. It's not without its detractors. We have at least one group of people that have at least insinuated that they may challenge our district-wide Lima. That's yet to be seen. But from our perspective, it's a good way to do things. We've talked a lot about technology and how that works into it. It's almost our philosophy is that a lot of people want to conserve, but unless you make them conserve, they're not going to adopt that technology. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but we're kind of the impetus for that. Another thing I'd like to mention briefly is in Kansas, they've got what they call the water conservation areas, which are, I think, a powerful tool in the fact that an individual irrigator can sign a consent decree with the Division of Water Resources, and through that they can get a lot of flexibilities. They have to save a little bit of water, but there are a lot of things that they can do under that than they can do under their current water rights. In our area, we've had a marked increase in interest in the WCAs, especially to get additional flexibility that aren't available to them under the management program. So I think that's something also that I think we can kind of be proud of. I can preach and say, boy, everybody else ought to get up and start to do these Limas. It's to each district, each region, what they can do, what your states allow you to do. There's a variety of different policies and laws in place across the region of the Ogallala. Again, that's something we don't worry a lot about. We just try to do the best we can at home. And with that, I think we'll wait for questions.
So you can see a lot of diversity and a lot of passion on this panel for policy in their own states and at their tribes. So I believe we have time for at least one question. We have about 3 minutes before we move on to our next activity. So if you have a question for our panelists, please come up to the microphone and ask your question. What questions do you have?
I've known Steve for some time, and the Master Irrigator program is really near and dear to me. And I'm actually issuing a challenge to the room. is that format, all of the technology and the young producers and these young men and women that are coming out of our institutions, that opportunity would provide tons of opportunity to go into biosciences, to irrigation, to hydrology, to all of those things. But that master irrigator program, and I'm going to pick on my son who returned into operation, it would be extremely helpful to have a template like that to develop their ideas and what they think they can utilize in their own operation. So the question is, Steve, what's your adoption rate? What across your district, and I'm not saying that they have to have the whole suite of management practices, but where would you put the adoption across your producers in your district of integrating any, some, or all of these ideas or concepts under that program?
As far as the program is concerned, it's only in its third year. The first 2 years covered approximately 125,000 acres. Those guys represented that much, and they are looking at varying levels of adoption. So we have about 1 million acres of irrigation. So far, I would think that I killed this one too. Hey, I'm doing okay. I figured it out. So I think that we still have very few people in our district that has adopted everything. But a tidbit of stuff, I would think there's probably 30 or 40% of the 1 million acres that are starting to look at some of this. Either they've seen it from their friends or next. There's a lot of people looking over the fence at their friends and producers to see what they're doing to try to do a better job. So,
and a follow-up to that is, what are your next steps? I mean, what gets you excited about the Master Irrigator program, and what are your next steps for that? And is industry engaged with that? Is the pro people, the weather station, the weather undergrounds, all of the satellite, are they engaged in this and want to be a partner with you?
yes.
I knew that was simple.
That was, yeah, yes, and the next step is we're going to see. We'll reevaluate this program. It was built around a economist, Steve Amoson out of Texas A&M. He's retired now. He works consulting for us on this. We are really, it's important to us to make sure it fits the producer's bottom line, because that's how we're going to be able to get massive adoption. So in this program itself, it's reached it's a little over 10% of the total acres. We have 2 more years. If we can reach a quarter of the total acres directly, then we think we have a better opportunity to spread it to the rest of the area. And you're not required to do these things. You come in and look at them, and we bring in producers that sometimes, the one thing I didn't mention, I'm shut up after this, is we have producer panels. We have farmers sitting in front of farmers at the end of each one of these days talking about how these products or this method works. And we get some of the best dialogue going based on that. Producers want to talk to producers. They don't want to talk to me as a government guy.
Well, help me say thank you again to our panelists.